Hello, in this video we're going to compare and contrast the model of perfect competition with monopoly. So let's start. The number of buyers and sellers. Both perfect competition and monopoly models assume many buyers. Perfect competition has many sellers. Monopoly has one seller. Price taker. Perfectly competitive firms take the going market price, the equilibrium price, as a given, so perfectly competitive firms are known as price takers. A monopoly is a price searcher. A monopoly is trying to find the profit maximizing price. So a monopoly is a price searcher or a price setter. The firm's demand curve. Perfectly competitive firms have a horizontal or perfectly elastic demand curve at the market or equilibrium price. The monopoly, on the other hand, faces the downward sloping market demand curve. So the demand curve for the monopoly slopes downward. The demand curve for the individual or representative perfectly competitive firm is horizontal at the equilibrium price. Keep in mind that the equilibrium price in perfect competition is determined where the market demand curve intersects the market supply curve. Substitutes. In perfect competition, each firm's product is a perfect substitute for another firm's product. All firms produce identical products. With monopoly, a monopoly produces a good with no close substitutes. Barriers to entry. There are no barriers to entry in perfect competition. It is easy for firms to enter this market and start up business. Monopoly is a market structure that has very large barriers to entry. These barriers to entry can be government created, such as patents, copyrights, and licenses. It could be economies of scale or control over a key or scarce input. The market demand curve. In perfect competition, the market demand curve slopes downwards. The firm's demand curve, as we just mentioned, is horizontal. So in perfect competition, there are two demand curves to think about, the market demand curve and the firm's demand curve. With monopoly, there's only one demand curve, and that is the market demand curve, and the monopoly firm faces the entire market demand curve. The firm's supply curve. Perfect competition, the firm's supply curve is its marginal cost curve. In monopoly, there is no supply curve. The monopoly is a price searcher, so it sets the market price. It doesn't respond to the market price. A perfectly competitive firm is a price taker. It responds to the market price. It doesn't set it. The market supply curve. In perfect competition, the market supply curve is a horizontal summation of each firm's marginal cost curve. As I just mentioned, monopoly has no supply curve. There's no market supply curve, no firm supply curve to speak about. Profit maximization. In perfect competition, a firm will maximize profit by producing where price equals marginal cost, which is equivalent to producing where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. In perfect competition and in perfect competition only, price equals marginal revenue. For monopoly, profit maximization occurs where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. With monopoly, price does not equal marginal revenue. Long-run profits. Perfectly competitive firms make zero economic profit or normal rates of return in the long run. No barriers to entry implies that excess profit gets competed away by the entry of new firms in the long run. Monopoly can make positive economic profit in the long run. Entry into the market is blocked, so those excess profits above normal rates of return do not necessarily have to get competed away. Allocate of efficiency. Perfectly competitive markets produce the level of output that maximizes economic surplus, which is a sum of consumer and producer surplus. So these markets are allocatively efficient, producing the ideal amount of output, if you will, the efficient amount of output. Monopoly produces less output than is allocatively efficient. Price and marginal cost. In perfect competition, price equals marginal cost. Under monopoly, price exceeds marginal cost, and that means there is an allocate of inefficiency. A monopoly doesn't produce all units of output in which the marginal benefit of consumption is greater than the marginal cost of production. Deadweight loss. In perfect competition, there is no deadweight loss. Under monopoly, there is a deadweight loss. A monopolist doesn't maximize economic surplus. Price exceeds marginal cost. There are units of output that provide more benefits to consumers than it costs to make, yet these units are not being produced in a monopoly market. Price and output. Perfect competition has lower prices and produces more output than under monopoly, all else being equal. Short-run profits. Firms in both market structures can make positive or negative profit in the short run. There's nothing that says a monopolist cannot make an economic loss, at least in the short run. The shutdown rule. Both types of firms will shut down in the short run if price is less than average variable cost or its revenue is less than variable cost or total variable cost. This is the way to minimize losses. Price discrimination. Only monopoly or price searchers can price discriminate, not price takers. So perfectly competitive firms are price takers. They take the going market price as a given, so there's no way to price discriminate in that market structure. Marginal revenue and price. For a perfectly competitive firm, marginal revenue equals price. Every time you sell one more unit at the going market price, equilibrium price, your revenues go up by that amount. Monopoly. Marginal revenue will be less than price. To sell one more unit, the price on the next unit and all previously produced units must fall to the new price. Marginal revenue and firm demand. Perfectly competitive firms. The marginal revenue and the firm's demand curve are the same thing. They're both horizontal at the going market price or equilibrium price. For monopoly, marginal revenue, the marginal revenue curve lies below the demand curve. The marginal revenue curve will have a slope that is twice as steep as the monopolist's demand curve. Calculating profit. For both firms, profit equals revenue minus total cost, or another way of writing that is price minus average cost, which is then all multiplied by the Q, the quantity of output. Revenue. For both firms, revenue is price times quantity. Okay, that's it. I hope you found this video helpful.